In today's video, we will be making the most delicious beef and cheese lasagna. Make sure to check out for the ingredients in the video description box. We're gonna start off by creating the cheese sauce. We'll add the eggs, and then we'll add the ricotta cheese. If you want to use cream cheese, you can use it, but it's pretty easy to find the ricotta, so go ahead and use that instead. Bring the Parmesan cheese and shred it. I'm using the thick side because it will be easier for it to melt once we're cooking this lasagna. But you can use the smaller one if you want. I also suggest to buy the cheese in block and shred it at home, because when you buy the cheese shredded from the store, this contains a lot of starch. It won't damage the recipe, but the flavor and the consistency won't be the same. Same thing with the fresh mozzarella we're using in this recipe. It gives a complete different flavor from the regular mozzarella, so please go to the cheese section and make sure you get all 3 cheeses I just mentioned before. Fresh mozzarella will be easy to pull apart with your fingers. Actually do it this way, don't use the shredded because it won't work. Add the parsley, I'm using the Italian. Also add the salt and pepper. And we'll start combining the cheese sauce. The egg that we added is going to help us combine the ingredients very good. Once it's baking in the oven, the egg will cook completely and make the cheese sauce very creamy. Once the cheese sauce is well combined, set it aside. We're gonna start working on the meat sauce. For that, I'm using this cast iron skillet. Just make sure you use a big pot or skillet that would hold all the meat. Add a little bit of oil and set the stove at medium temperature. Once the skillet is ready, go ahead and add the meat. Start separating the meat. I like to use a spatula to do this, but go ahead and use the tool that you like the most. I also want to tell you that I'm using a meat that is 93% meat and 7% fat. Add the salt and pepper and keep stirring, separating and cooking the meat at the same time until it's fully cooked. It's gonna go from red color to brown color. It will take from 10 to 15 minutes to get fully cooked. At the end, you're gonna have this liquid at the bottom of the pan, which is completely fine. It's just some fat and other liquids that the meat releases. We're going to strain it and set the meat aside. In the same pot we were using before, at medium heat, add a little bit of oil. Also add the diced bell peppers and the diced onion. Cook from 2 to 3 minutes or until the onion turns into a light golden color. Add the minced garlic and the meat that we previously cooked. The next step is totally optional. It will add lots of flavor and I highly advise you to add it, but if you don't want to, you don't have to. It's red wine. The alcohol will evaporate and only the flavor will remain. Stir, stir, stir until fully combined, and then we'll add the marinara sauce. I bought mine at this store. If you want to make the marinara sauce from scratch, go ahead and do it. But the ones they sell at the store, they're pretty decent, so you'll be able to skip this step. Go ahead and add the oregano. And also, the next step is optional, but I'm telling you, it will balance all the acidity contained in the sauce and it will be very good, which is sugar. If you don't want to, don't add it. Add the salt, keep stirring, and cook the sauce for about 10 to 15 minutes. This will allow for all the flavors to concentrate and help our lasagna to be delicious. Let the meat sauce cool off completely before starting assembling the lasagna. To cook the noodles, I like to use this very large pot. That way I don't have to bend the noodles. But please go ahead and use the pot that you have available at home. Add a decent amount of salt and let the water boil. Once the water is boiling, add the noodles one at a time. See, this is why I like this pot, because my noodles stay flat and they don't break. But if yours break, do not worry about it. We'll put the pieces together and the lasagna will taste amazing. You won't be able to see those broken noodles in the middle. If you're using dry noodles, I always advise to follow the instructions in the box and cook them at the suggested time. Once your noodles are al dente, let's set them aside and we'll start assembling the lasagna. I forgot to tell you guys to reserve a little bit of the marinara sauce. Please do that. If you forget to, you can use some of the sauce that has meat. It won't affect the final result. But we need to add something in the bottom so the first layer of noodle won't get stuck to the Pyrex. You can also add butter if you want. I like to add sauce because the noodle will absorb some of those flavors and it will be amazing. Go ahead and lay the first layer of noodles. I'm using a Pyrex that is 12 by 7.5 inches wide. And after the noodles have been cooked, they fit just perfect in this Pyrex. Next, we're adding the cheese sauce. If you put your cheese sauce in the fridge while cooking the meat, it's going to be cold and it's going to be very hard to spread. So make sure all of your ingredients are at room temperature before you start assembling the lasagna. First, we add 1 layer of noodles, then 1 layer of cheese sauce, then 1 layer of meat sauce, and then we keep adding until we run out of ingredients. Also, make sure you divide your 2 sauces in the same amount of layers. For example, I'm adding 4 layers of noodles. So I made sure I divided my cheese and meat sauce into 4, so my lasagna is even and it has the same amount of ingredients on each layer. We don't add noodles to the last layer. We add mozzarella cheese instead. And the amount of cheese that you add, it depends on you. The oven is preheating at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. But before we bring it to the oven, we're gonna cover it with aluminum foil. Try not to make it tight because the lasagna needs to breathe. And also, we don't want the cheese to get stuck to the aluminum foil. If you're planning on baking this lasagna later, you can cover it and put it in the fridge until it's ready to put in the oven. But if you wanna bake it right now, bake it from 25 to 30 minutes. Remember, the ingredients are at room temperature and we also need to melt that cheese. After the time, remove the aluminum foil. Bring the lasagna back to the oven, but this time under the broil option for about 5 to 7 minutes. It will turn the cheese into this golden, delicious. Look at that. I do advise to wait from 10 to 15 minutes before you start cutting the lasagna. This way, by the time you're about to eat it, it will hold the shape and it will look just amazing. I hope you guys try and love this recipe as much as I did. Thank you guys for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.